Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tone Deep. Actually dropping my second episode in this week's time, which is kind of crazy for me. As you saw in the video I did with Keith, I messed up that one, so we had to reshoot that one last week. But I had already filmed this one with my next guest, Lucas Fowler, a week before that. So both of these were supposed to come out 1 week at a time, but we're condensing it down, getting it into 2 weeks because I wanted everybody to hear what both of these people had to say. This was really fun for me. Lucas holds a place in my history as far as like my guitar journey over the past 5 years. I discovered his channel very early on that path, and his content and his attitude and who he is and his helpful nature, his willingness to share, all kind of culminated in helping me get to where I wanted to go. So please enjoy this interview. There's a lot in here, and it was just a pleasure. Thank you, Lucas, for doing this with me, and welcome to Tone Deep with Lucas Fowler.
Finally veiled his own despair, and now his time is running out. When all along I had no doubt that the man behind the mask must hide a scared and helpless child inside. And all the walls he built divide him from the love he's been denied.
All right, Lucas Fowler, welcome to Tone Deep, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Just so everybody watching knows, I've been a huge fan and a subscriber of your channel. Let's see, the year of gear 2020, I believe, was my first sort of venture into guitar YouTube, and I found like Robert Baker, and I found your channel, and like the big ones, Paul David's Music Is Win, Tyler Larson over there. But I really fell in love with like your channel because you were doing a little bit of everything. Case in point, the first video I watched of yours was you were relicking a Squire Bullet Mustang.
Yeah.
And then you did a review right after that, those videos on like a Epiphone Explorer, and I kind of got the hooks in me. You were kind of speaking my language, and when you did the relic job on the Squire Bullet Mustang, you had like pulled up all old vintage Fender Mustangs, and you were looking through, and you're like, see this here, and you were talking about the relicking and everything. I was like, dang, dude, this guy like knows what he's doing for real. So I really have always appreciated the wide breadth of different things that you cover on your channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So just been a big fan. I'm really happy to get to like actually talk to you for once, rather than just comment sectioning it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm flattered. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So sort of a gear channel. It's Sean plays guitar, so I try to focus as much on playing, but part of that is the gear. And my first question usually is, what's your go-to rig at the moment? Things always change, but what are you rocking right now?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. And it kind of has multiple answers. So I do multiple projects, and my rig kind of changes a little bit on what project I'm doing. So for instance, one of the things I do is the Josh Sanders band, and that is like country and Southern rock. So with that, I kind of have a different approach. So like guitar wise, it kind of tends to stay the same. It's usually the same, like, 3 or 4 guitars that are sort of my go-tos, but my rig, as far as my amp and everything, changes. So like I use the Blue Guitar amp ones live. Studio stuff is like a whole, I could go down a rabbit hole, but but right now what I've been doing with those is just running everything into the front of those set clean. And I have like a pedal rig that I built. So I'm getting all my drive and tones and everything out of the pedal board and just running everything straight into the front. And I run 2 of those in stereo. I have the Mercury edition on one side and the Iridium edition on the other side, and 2 matching blue guitar cabs. And then I just set those really clean, and I run I stereo split with a Keeley Halo delay, which I just adore. Andy Timmons is just like I'm such a huge fan. That delay pedal, it does such a good job of spreading the sound and making it like full and rich, but not in an annoying chorusy way.
Yeah.
There is some modulation happening, but it doesn't sound like I'm playing Van Halen in 1989, which I also love.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
It's just not appropriate for that gig.
Right.
So yeah, that pedal stays on all the time, and I either use the Halo setting, which is that kind of bigger, spacier delay setting, or I have a real short slapback that just makes the guitar almost sound kind of doubled. And then I just use a few different drive pedals, kind of for like what level of drive. Like this is one of my favorites, is the Revival drive.
Ooh.
Yeah. I did not seek this pedal out. It's just I have a friend who I was building a pedal board, like a whole rig for him, and he had one of these, and he was like, "This thing is too complicated." He's like, "Will you take this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I will take it."
That makes me indescribably happy. I'm just going to switch over to the silicon rectifier side. And this is kind of more of a Marshall super lead type sound. So I'm going to go to my bridge pickup. And again, here's clean. And then here's with the pedal on.
In his defense, it is extremely complicated. Yeah, that's kind of like my rhythm drive sound would be that, because I can use either a Marshall-y kind of sound or a Fender-y kind of sound. It's got a foot switch. And then when I go into like high gain lead mode, it's the JHS AT pedal. It's this beautiful, sweet singing lead sound. I'm a big Eric Johnson fan. It kind of does that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the like Josh rig. It's kind of I either have clean or like sort of a mid-gain vintagey sound, or that really sweet singing lead sound. That's what I tend to do with his band. But with InterTwyneD, which is my sort of more progressive heavy rock thing, that I tend to use the Blue Guitar Iridium edition in the like high gain, what's it called, the modern mode. And because that band is pretty much just like really clean or super aggressive.
Right.
Heavy.
Right.
And I tend to just, I have like a delay pedal and a wah, and it's a more stripped back rig for that, because I do all the singing in that band. And I basically just have like, I'm playing clean parts, or I'm playing heavy rhythm, or I'm playing like a really screaming lead thing with delay on it. So it's a more straightforward approach. Whereas with Josh's band, there's a lot of nuance, like little parts and fills and stuff, because I'm only singing backups in that, so I can be a little more of a guitar player, which is nice. And then as far as guitars are concerned, because I kind of consider this part of the rig, generally PRS. I just have been for many years. I got my first PRS when I was like 18. And it's just been my comfort zone. I have a lot of other stuff, and I enjoy playing or whatever. But like for Josh's band, this one I use a lot. Ugh. This is it's an S2 standard 22 that I turned into kind of an HSS sort of Frankenstein thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's a Strat-y type thing, but the pickup spacing is a little bit different. So it's not exactly like a Strat. And these are Planet Tone pickups. And this is actually like a prototype of a kind of a new pickup I'm working on with Jose at Planet Tone. It's like sort of based on my original signature model.
Nice.
But you can see we've added a blade coil, which is super cool.
Really hot.
It's not actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just around 10K. So I would, hotter than a PAF, less than like a JB or something.
Right, which is like 13 usually or something like that.
Yeah, so it gives you a little bit of extra heat on the front end without overdriving the amp or making it sound too honky.
Sure.
And importantly, it splits really well because that one coil is kind of a hotter coil, and so when I split, and I also use like a partial split thing with some resistors, it sort of ends up sounding a bit more like a P90 than like half a humbucker.
Okay.
And as a guy who covers a lot of ground, that is super helpful. So that's the guitar I would say that I use the most for Josh is that. And unless I gotta, they're floating trims, so I gotta have a different guitar for D. But if I'm playing in half step standard sort of tuning, then that's the guitar. Whereas with InterTwyneD, again, with the PRSs, but I'm more want to use this, which is a DGT. And this is arguably my favorite guitar of all time. Just because it's like a PRS, like a custom 24 or 22 or something, but it's a little thicker sounding, it's a little thicker body. And it just has that warm, kind of friendly guitar thing. And one of the things I like about the PRSs is the scale length. They're 25-inch scale. So it's slightly longer than Gibson, a little shorter than Fender.
Right.
So I play in half step down in almost every project I'm involved in. So just that extra little bit from a Gibson, which is what I sort of grew up playing, helps with that tuning and that sort of intonation and stuff. So that's kind of the broad overview there. I mean, like, I could get really into the weeds about the specifics, but it would be fair to say that live, it's like a PRS into some version of my Amp One stuff is what I've been doing since probably 2021 or whenever I kind of got a relationship with Blue Guitar and we started talking about some stuff, and I tried those out and was like, dude, these are incredible. So
I remember those videos. I remember the Blue Guitar videos when you were just getting them in and trying them out. They sounded so good.
Yeah.
And then I also remember you modding the Mira, the Pokeball guitar. My kids will appreciate that.
I'm a huge Pokemon fan.
Yeah, dude, it's good stuff. Anyway, the really interesting parts about that is where you sort of veer from what encompasses a lot of guitar YouTube, which is the traditional stuff like PRS guitars are for lawyers and blues dads and stuff like that. And modeling is not as good as tube amps and all of that stuff. And you're like all in on stuff that I can really get behind. So for me, your rig is like totally speaking my language, which I can appreciate about you, because there's another guitar player out there that's like, modelers are good. It's okay. I think
they're so good now. I mean, there's this stigma. I mean, and if you're talking about the original kidney bean pod, like, no, it's not as good. But I mean, even that still, I will argue to this day that like, you can give me anything like that. And like, I play pretty well and nobody cares. You know what I mean? Like when you get up and you play the part really well and the band is good and you're coming through this huge stage system, then like nobody in the crowd is like, damn, I wish that guy was using a tube amp. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares. And it's all for us as guitar players. And so I I'm an efficiency guy, you know, within reason. There's some things I'll do a little extra work because I prefer it that way. You know, like I could go straight front of house all the time, but I like cabs on stage. Nobody else cares, but I like it. But within reason, I mean, if I got to drive 3 hours somewhere in the outback or whatever, and I only have so much space, and, you know, and I'm thinking, well, I have this allotted amount of time to sound check, and I don't want to have to spend, this is the reason I don't do 4-cable method anymore. You know, I did that for years. I had a, you know, like I had a rack for a while with the boogie in it and everything, and all that stuff sounds great, but the more things you add in terms of what could go wrong, you know, stuff will go wrong. So I've tried to kind of streamline it to what feels the best to me within reason, you know, and
Yeah.
and the more you do it over years, you just sort of find things like, oh, that really works for me. Like
Well,
I did the Helix for a long time.
yeah, great unit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a beefier version of my Podgo. I love the tones Line 6 has been able to acquire over the years. Like you said,
Yeah.
from the kidney bean on up, like things have just gotten better and better.
Yeah, absolutely.
From all of them. And certainly those blue guitar single units are fantastic. I encourage anybody to go watch your introduction videos on those. They sound
The really cool thing about those for me is that they're kind of like this really nice marriage of you know, practical portability and stuff like that, but they are analog units. So if you're like me and you do like to kind of tweak physical knobs and stuff, I'm not afraid of digital, but there is something a little bit more satisfying as a guitar player about analog for me.
tactile.
And yeah, it's tactile, and they have, you know, like they run a nano, like a military spec Russian nanotube at a high plate voltage. So it does, as you start to turn the amp up, it does kind of feel like a real amp.
Nice.
And that just makes me happy, you know. And if I'm happy, then I'm want to play better. And
Right.
so that's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, yeah, this is a little thing I can do. I can have the analog amplifier. It makes me feel happy, makes me play better. It's worth it. But if we were like, oh, we got to pick up a gig in California, it's a fly date, I'm taking the Helix, man. Like, you know, because it's unreasonable. Like, I can get a good enough sound for whatever gig this is. Like, throw a guitar in the bag, take the Helix. It's fine. You know.
Yeah,
so
you could probably fit the Helix in your gig bag too.
Totally. Yeah. Or, you know, in a backpack or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And like a good example of talking about the cabs live, like I don't even mic my cabs live. They are literally just for me to feel it on stage. Like what I send to front of house is actually, I run through these little Palmer DI box things.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. And they're just analog speaker simulators basically. And so like what you hear out front is not even mic'd cab. The mic'd cab is really just so that I can feel it behind me, you know, like blowing on the back of my legs or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, you know, if anything, it's probably making the sound guy mad at me. So
I wish we could just do it without those.
oh yeah, anytime I show up and I got the DI things, they're like awesome, and then I'll put the cabs out, and they're like, but why? So lately, I've been doing the Bonamassa trick where I have one of those baffles that I put in front of the speakers so that the beam doesn't take anybody's eyebrows off.
Yeah,
because I do play kind of loud. You know, it's a feel thing.
Well, we're gonna get into InterTwyneD a little bit here because I have questions and many things to say about that band. But first, I wanted to ask you. You brought up your Planet Tone pickups and your signature with Jose there at Planet Tone, and I I have Planet Tones in this yellow guy right here.
Oh,
So
very cool.
that's the vintage spec PAFE style in the neck and bridge, and then a Pasadena, which you recommended me via email. We had a little exchange there. And then I have Planet Tones in, oh wait, is it that one? No, I have Planet Tone P90s in my guitar upstairs.
Yeah.
And I could not be happier with those pickups. Reasonably priced, sort of low end on the boutique as far as the price, but really high end on the quality. And Jose was great to work with. How did your relationship with him get started?
Yeah, that's a fun little story. So it relates to a guitar, which any excuse to get down guitars from around.
Of course.
So you may recognize this one if you watch my channel. This is my Greco. This is a Misa is what we call her. This is a 1977 EG 800. So it's like a Fujijin Les Paul copy from the 70s, built just like a Norland Gibson pretty much.
Right.
I bought this guitar from Japan in like 2018 or something, and it was super cool. Like I loved the way that it felt or whatever, but the pickups in it were a little bit unbalanced and microphonic. And so at the time I thought, all right, well, I didn't pay very much money for this guitar. I think I paid $500 for it or something.
Right. Yeah, they were still cheap, right?
Yeah. And that is, I apologize, by the way, for that is partially my doing. I didn't intend for that video that I made to go like super. I mean, it got hundreds of thousands of views or something.
You really went like, Josh Scott all over those guitars, bro.
Yeah, I felt really bad because I was like, I had just had an experience with an Epiphone that I'd worked on from someone. I was like, God, these quality control on these at the time was not good. And I was pretty like ticked about it. And then I got this and I thought, man, why for the same money, why wouldn't you just buy one of these? And I made a video. And then, so then the guy that I bought the guitar from, he sent me an email later. He was like, oh, thank you so much for doing that, because now I've sold so many of these guitars.
Oh, my God. That's funny.
But anyway, I didn't want to spend a ton of money on the pickups because I hadn't spent a bunch of money on the guitar. I was like, I don't want to spend $250 on a set of pickups for these or something, but I care about pickups. And I had a friend locally who was a dealer for Planet Tone. And he said, I've got an extra set of these. I'll sell you the pair of them for like $100 or something. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And it was a 78 Pasadena in the neck and a full throttle bridge pickup.
Nice.
And I put them in the guitar and I just like, I don't know, just something about those pickups I had not heard pickups do before personally. And I was so moved that I was like, oh, this is kick ass. So I made a video about it. And the dealer guy is a friend of mine, sent the video to Jose, and Jose was like, I love this. And he sent me an email and said, can I send you some more pickups? And from then on, it kind of just spiraled. We started like, hey, can you make a video for this one? Sure. And it was kind of just like, I'll send you something, you keep it, make a video if you want to. You know, there was no pressure on it or anything, which I love about him. And everything he sent me had that same kind of thing. It was a sort of marriage of like warmth and clarity. So, you know, you could hear all the notes, the string to string separation, but it never felt ice picky. And I'm a real stickler about not sounding ice picky.
Yeah, so the bridge pickup, even in the PAF one, it's got that like quack to it that you kind of look for in a PAF style, but it doesn't pierce your eardrums that way. It's just smooth.
Yeah, and I mean, I have some limited understanding of what he's doing to achieve that, but the short version is like it is a very specific thing to that kind of pickup that I perceive and I have not heard anywhere else. And so I just was already sold. I was like, cool, I'll just use these because they're very reasonably priced and they sound great or whatever. And then as we started to work together, I would give him hippie notes about like, I'm kind of looking for this in a pickup. What should I do for that? And after bugging him for a while, I say bugging him, he's super sweet. After a while, he was like, well, hey, can I make you something? Like, what would you, if you could have a pickup, what would it be? Right. And I just told him kind of what I wanted out of a set of pickups. And he said, okay. And then he made this set of pickups and mailed them to me. And I put them in like my favorite guitar. And it just blew my eyebrows off. I was like, that's it. That's the pickup. That's the pickup.
And what's that called?
the Statera is what it's called.
Right.
And Statera is Latin for balance. Because I'm a real nut about the balance between the neck and the bridge pickup in humbuckers. I don't love playing a guitar where the neck pickup is much louder than the bridge, which it can often be because there's more frequencies happening farther away from the bridge. There's more ellipsis of string there, and there's more energy. So those bass frequencies, they tend to be fuller and more powerful there. So you kind of have to wind the bridge pickup a little more powerful than the neck pickup to make them balance right.
Okay.
But there's a trick to that too, where you've got to get the output balance right, because my bridge pickup is just a hair under 10K and my neck pickup's, I think, about 7.5. But then I was like, I need that neck pickup to be really clear, you know, kind of the 78 Pasadena thing. I want it to be really clear, but I also want it to split well. You know, I had these really specific things as a guy. Like I kind of cover a lot of ground, and you know, we ended up deciding on, you know, 42 gauge wire and an offset wind, and you know, Alnico 4 magnets, and these like really specific nerdy things. And then he sent me this prototype pickups, and he just stuck it out of the gate. I mean, I didn't do this. And so everything else then since then, you know, we'll work on like ideas of like, oh, let's try this or whatever. But I always just go back to that pickup. Like if all else fails, like I know this pickup's going to sound great for everything.
I think you have them in like 5 guitars or something, right?
Yeah, at least. I mean, and I've tried different magnet variations too, just to, you know, to hear what it does. But I go back to that Alnico 4 original version of the pickup. Just sounds great. I use it for the Southern rock country thing. I use it for really pretty aggressive metal type stuff. Any of the kind of more classic rock cover bands and stuff that I do that stuff, it just does everything really well. Nice. And it to me, it just feels like an extension of myself at this point. So when I pick up another guitar that doesn't have that pickup in it, I'm always a little disappointed, you know?
Yeah.
If it's not like a Strat or something that, you know, if it's a humbucker guitar, when I pick that up, I'm like, oh,
right.
That's I'm that in tune with that particular piece of equipment now.
Nice, man. Well, I mean, I just think that's really cool. I have really enjoyed what I've, you know, the couple sets that I bought from Jose. I'll probably buy more in the future for other things, but you know, as far as a vintage P90 tone goes, I mean, they came in just the right price, great tone, couldn't ask for more. And I've had 3 sets of pickups in that kit guitar that I built, and getting Jose's pickups in there made the guitar just infinitely more usable and better. So
one of the things I really like, and one of the things I really like about him too, and other companies like this, is he's a small operation,
right?
So I mean, he himself pretty much does all of the pickup winding. I know that he has sometimes some people that give him a hand with like assembly or something, but it is mostly him. And if you call, you're gonna get him. You know, you can talk to him or email him specifically.
Right.
And
he emailed me back and forth when we were talking about the P90.
Very knowledgeable and super easy to work with. And he's like really wants you to be happy. Like there's been times where like he and I will help out somebody. He'll be like, this guy is kind of interested in this. Will you talk to him? Yeah, absolutely. And it's so cool to have people like that. Thomas Blug is another example of a guy like that. Like I can call Thomas and ask him a question. And I love that.
Did you have him on a video once?
Yeah, he I guess it would be more accurate to say I was on his video.
There we go.
And when I hear what you're doing, it sounds like, yeah, he makes the Amp-1 Iridium Edition sound cool with what he's doing.
Well, I'm talking about that pickup, and that's a big movement for me. The Amp-1 was kind of another moment like that, because I, when I got it, I got it out of the box, and of course you sit there and look at it and think, wow, this looks cool, But at some point, you go plug it in, and you have that, like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Because anytime you get a new piece of gear and you don't know how it's going to go. So I plugged it in to a little cabinet, a small 112 cabinet. Yeah. And I think I spent probably 3 hours in the room with it, because I was just it just did it. And I think part of it is the tone controls. They work in a different way. Sometimes a tone control on a certain amp, you can turn it and it just destroys the sound of the amplifier. And it's something about the gain staging or something, and I those amps are very difficult for me to work with. Whereas this, like, the Amp-1 has a sound, and then the tone controls just allow you to move it a little bit.
There we go. I think I posted maybe the part of it on my channel, but he did like an interview of me on their Academy of Tone podcast, which was so cool. Thomas is such a fantastic guitar player, and a really, really like brilliant designer. Like, he did a lot of the cool stuff over at Hughes and Kettner, like the Rotosphere, for instance. But the Amp-1 is such a cool, really well thought through piece of technology. And if there's all these little extra things that you can do inside of it, like he calls them expert features. So I'm always finding ways to like get something extra out of that I didn't know I could do. And so I love companies like that, where it's kind of a smaller operation and you can talk to someone who's really involved and actually cares about the product. So like as a player, I am one of those guys who, like, I want to be in the know. I want to understand these things and be able to know that, like, if something goes wrong or there's something I don't understand or something, I could talk to someone who, like, gives a crap.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. I think that has to do with, I don't know, it just seems like your character, like, watching your videos throughout the years, you've always had this, like, very you seemed like a good dude to me, and
thank you.
And I think that you are, and you doing a podcast on a channel with 305 subs now is probably a testament to that. But one of the reasons that I always got that vibe is in your videos, you were constantly doing either something with your old man, with your pops, with your dad, or with your wife. And I just thought it was really awesome that, you'd have your wife on for like, guess how much this guitar costs, or, you guys would do, she would rate your guitars or something like that. Always really fun to see.
$650, Bob.
$650. You're super duper super off.
High or low?
You're high.
Oh, I was gonna say $450 originally.
Yeah, you'd still be.
Still off?
Oh yeah.
How cheap did you buy my guitar?
Okay, well, to be fair.
Let's recap. Your guitar's $2,000.
Okay.
My guitar, $150.
It was less than that, really. It's $129.
And then I really connected with the episodes when you'd have your dad on, because my dad plays guitar and I always had that relationship with him.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Lucas. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are here visiting with my dad. Say hi, Dad. Hi.
So I guess maybe my question is, like, what kind of inspired you to, like, bring your wife on or bring your dad on all the time, like, periodically?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to just having good relationships with those people. Like, my wife, for instance, is my best friend. I mean, like, we are married, we co-parent, but like, she is also my best friend. So like, I think sometimes there's people who are married and they think of that person as their spouse or whatever. And I'm thinking like when something happens to me that's funny or interesting or bad or whatever, the first person I want to call is her, and that's like your best friend. So
Yeah.
that those things that you see that we do when we do those videos like that is just us being us and just having a good time. And I think that usually is why those videos end up kind of like, I guess you would say, performing well, is
Sure.
because I think people enjoy seeing just genuine, happy people having a good time. And that's what it is. It's the same thing with my dad. Like my dad and I have, that's our big bonding thing that we've had for many years is, I used to ride around in the passenger seat of the pickup as a kid listening to Van Halen or the Black Crowes or whatever. And that's what kind of informed me as a guitar player. And so when I was about 13 years old, Dad was playing the guitar and I said, can I try? And so he put a 1986 PRS metal in my hands. It's a very, very rare guitar.
Nice.
And was like, try this out. And I learned how to play 3-lock box or something, Sammy Hagar. And it just really set the hooks in me. I'd always, I'd done band in middle school and honors chorus when I was a kid. And I loved music. I used to sing all the time. But there was something about guitar. There was like electric guitar. There was like an authoritativeness about it that was so moving to me, that being able to turn that volume knob up on the amp and feel what you put out come out. And it just was such a powerful feeling to me that I became hooked on it. And I think my dad probably had a similar experience as a young man. And so we just really have always connected on we like a lot of the same music and stuff. So anytime I get to have him on the channel, it's fun, I think, for both of us just to geek out and talk about music stuff. But also my dad and I are different on some things. Like he's really meticulous about the way he takes care of his guitars and the finish. And, he's really kind of particular about that stuff. And I'm not, to me, they're tools.
Yeah.
And so I always get a chuckle out of like what I would use that he wouldn't use, or how I would do it. And it drives him nuts that I put decals on my guitars. He's like, oh, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I seek out guitars that are beat up because to me, that's like the thing where if you drive by a restaurant and there's nobody outside of it, then it's probably not a very good restaurant. But if there's a line of people, then like, yeah, that food's probably good. So like when I see a guitar with a bunch of wear on it, I'm thinking like, that's probably a pretty good guitar.
Yeah.
And I don't mind getting up with a guitar that's beat up because I'm going to continue to beat it up. It makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's good relationships with the people. And I think people enjoy watching, it's like wholesome content, I guess,
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Like, oh yeah, those people are having a good time. That makes me feel good. And it makes me feel good when I see comments of people that are like, oh, I love watching you and your wife. It's so sweet to see you guys having fun together. And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that I can impart that on some other people that like, yeah, this is just real life people living in the moment and having a good time. So
I feel like your channel, Robert's channel, informed like what I thought a YouTube channel ought to be. And a huge part of that was that, you were on there with your dad. That was something I connected with immediately. I've had my dad on Tone Deep. He did the second episode. And then the other one is like having a video, the videos with your wife, where it's just like, this is really fun. Like, obviously it's not her passion, but like your guys' relationship is really fun to, it's just really fun probably to be in as much as it is to like watch on YouTube. And so I did like the humanizing aspect of your channel. You mentioned singing, you sound like Miles Kennedy. Like you have to have heard Miles Kennedy at some point and been like, that's how I want to sing. There's no way that didn't happen to you.
Well, and this is the absolute truth. That is not what happened.
Okay.
Now, let me preface this by saying I love Miles Kennedy and Alter Bridge in particular. However, that is just kind of how my voice sounds. And I've been singing for a long time. That when I first discovered Alter Bridge in like 2007, so like right around the time Blackbird came out.
Yeah.
I was in college, and I think I heard maybe them on like Jimmy Kimmel or something. I don't know.
Dude, Blackbird slapped so hard.
Yes,
I love that album.
What a song and album! Like my
Yeah.
gosh,
Ties That Bind. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole with you on this song and stuff,
Anyway,
man. Like,
back to you.
but yeah, no, but for whatever reason, I'm what you would call like kind of a higher tenor singer, and I think anybody that has the kind of voice that I or Miles had, which by the way, that's a compliment of the biggest stature to me, is to be compared to somebody like Miles. But
you sound just like him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I greatly appreciate that. But it was guys growing up for me that informed my singing. Guys like Chris Cornell, and Sammy Hagar, Robert Plant. You know, guys that sang up in that upper range. Actually, Walt Lafty from Silvertide, and
dude, that guy.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you when you mentioned in the email you were talking about Nick Perry. I was like, man, what a coincidence, because like I have some stuff to say about Nick Perry and Silvertide, and I'll get to that. Man.
Yeah.
But back to the original thing. Yeah, it just, I think when you have the kind of range that a singer like me or Miles or one of those guys has, I think certain things start to naturally happen in the way that you sing because of what's physically comfortable. And so like I'm not good at singing in a low register, but a high register is more comfortable for me. And as you do those things, you start to learn how to sort of like open up your, in theater, we would call it your mask, like your nasal, kind of your sinus cavities and everything. And it sort of creates this sound that you hear guys like me or Miles or Chris Cornell or Axl Rose or, the guys that sing up there, like it's a natural thing. And it sort of draws me into that sound. But I say all that to say, like, I love Miles so much. Like everything that guy does sounds great. Like from Alter Bridge to his solo stuff with Slash. I mean, it's all fantastic.
Well, and what a gift to be able to sing along with those songs in your car at pitch.
It is.
I can't do it. I got to sing low. I have a baritone. So.
And I mean, Miles is like on another level. I have what capabilities I have, but I am never quite at the level in terms of like range and power and control that he is. But I mean, I do my best, like you do. But well. I do so enjoy. I used to do it when I was driving back and forth from college, because when I was in college, I was gigging on the weekends, and then I'd drive back an hour and a half or 2 hours to college from wherever I was gigging. And so that's what I do the whole way back and forth, is I just have music in the car, and I can't play guitar while I'm driving, so I'm singing.
Right.
And a lot of Alter Bridge at the time in particular. And so, yeah, it's super cool to be compared to somebody like Miles, but honestly, it really is just sort of coincidental. And I imagine Miles and I probably have some similar influences. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think him from being a little older than me, and me from getting it through guys like my dad. Right. So like I grew up listening to and singing like 60s, 70s, and 80s rock, when it's more common for guys to sing up in that upper register. Whereas when you get into the grungy sort of era, it starts to get a little more low and gravelly. So there's not as many guys that sing in that upper register like that, or at least at the time. Now I'm seeing more of it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But
one of my other points was just like kind of having a guitar playing dad. We kind of have touched on that a little bit. So my next question is maybe more for you, as far as being a guitar playing dad and balancing your career, YouTube, and dad lifing.
Well, first of all, you just do the best you can. You know what I mean? In terms of like, of course, you have some things that you're like, you put this first, like your kids, safety and wellness and happiness and all. I mean, obviously that comes first. So I think what you end up with, if you're someone like me, is kind of like, where can I put my energy for my children that like I can be there for them and do that for them reasonably. And so for me, I don't work a 9 to 5-er, like what I do is a culmination of things, but it allows me to mostly work from home if I'm not, going off and gigging or something. So what that gives me the ability to do is spend more time with my kids in that sense. So like except for the past few months, which I'll get to in a second, I have always been the one to like take them to school or doctor's appointments or in that kind of stuff. You might consider me like a stay-at-home dad, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I do a lot more than that, which is can be a little taxing sometimes. But So I've been really fortunate that my wife is the one who works the 9 to 5, so to speak, and that the way that I provide is by, I do bring in some income by doing this kind of thing, but also I am like childcare and all of the things related to that.
Yep.
And that gives me the ability to spend a lot of time with my kids, more than I think a lot of fathers are probably able to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is such a blessing. It's been, it can be a little taxing sometimes, at certain ages, like they'll wear you out and up in the middle of the night, all these things, every dad will tell you that. But ultimately, I wouldn't change anything. I'm so happy to be the one that gets the phone call like, oh, Cora's got a fever at school. Someone come pick her up. It's me that's going to do it. Piper's got a doctor's appointment. I'm the one that takes her. And so I'm so lucky to be able to have all of those day-to-day moments with them. And that gives me that sort of extra level of connection that like my dad did not have with me, because my dad was go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, come home at 7 o'clock at night. So like the time that I got to spend with my dad was much more rare. And so it was really, really important, Yeah. And where totally. I have the ability to like spend lots of time with my kids, which is so great. And that makes it easier for me to not have to work so hard to get in that time, is that it's just built in, available to me as childcare. So I have a really great relationship with my kids, and it takes a load off my wife, so she can go and do she's a teacher. She can go and do her thing and not have to worry about what's going on with the kids or so. In many ways, especially where I live in the South, I would say that's kind of like a non-traditional way of doing things. You typically, and where I live, would think of the woman as a sort of homemaker, and the dad is the one that goes to work. That's the old school way. And it's really the opposite for us. Like I do most of the taking care of the house and a lot of the cooking and stuff like that. But I so love that. Like I enjoy being able to be the one that does that, and also that gives me the freedom to be able to pursue all of this nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's great. I also work from home, but I can relate to what you're saying as far as like being around so much. I think it's really great when dads get to spend that extra time with their kids. Like I feel really lucky that I get to put my boys on the school bus every day. I can come upstairs and see my daughter whenever I want to. Like it really does something else to a family dynamic when dad can be around. So I think,
oh my gosh,
super.
Yeah. It can't be understated. I think the impact that a father can have on the children, not that obviously the mother is very, very important,
well, of course.
But there is something extra and unique that comes with what a father can give to their children when they're available to do so.
Yeah.
And I know from not being able to spend as much time with my dad, how big a deal it is. So it gives me this, it's a big warm feeling to know that my kids are going to grow up thinking like, yeah, my dad was there all the time.
Too much, probably around too much.
Probably too much. Yeah, I feel certain in 3 or 4 years, I'm going to be around too much for Cora.
Right. Well, and then you'll really be able to hit the road with InterTwyneD if you want to,
Yeah. But yeah, I'll just, I haven't really talked to anybody about this yet, honestly. But the thing that was crazy for me, and I got to make a video on my channel about this, is at the beginning of the year, I had to have like some pretty major surgery. Because when I was 18 years old, developed what's called ulcerative colitis, which is kind of like an autoimmune inflammation of your colon. And it made me really sick. And I had to deal with it for many years, trying different medicines and stuff. And I went through a stint in 2018 or something where I was on prednisone for a really long time. And I like blew up like a balloon from all this water and everything. It's awful. I finally got it managed and like under control and in remission. And then I would have to go periodically to just have like a colonoscopy sort of checkup thing. Like, how's everything look? Are you okay? And I go it's just like 2023 or something. I go to have my standard check-in, and they said, we found dysplasia, low-grade dysplasia, which is abnormal cell growth that is not cancerous, but will likely become cancerous over time.
Oof.
And they're like, okay, we need to remove this. We can probably do this endoscopically, which is, just no surgery. So they go in to try and remove it. Actually, we can't get it this way. There's another kind of endoscopic surgery we can try. So we try that. Can't do it that way. So then the news I get is, okay, we need to remove your colon.
Oh
Like,
no.
yeah. So that they told me that this was like the beginning of 22 or 24, I guess, maybe. Like, okay, we got to remove your colon. We can sort of schedule that ahead of time when you want to do it. And my wife and I talked about it and like, okay, we want to do it in the beginning of 25. So we scheduled that out, and I'm thinking like what this means when they tell me this is that we're going to remove your whole colon and you're going to have like an ostomy bag.
Yeah.
And you'll have that for a while, and then they'll do another procedure, and then they'll reverse it. And then I would end up with what would have been called like a J pouch. Like they take your small intestine and turn it into a J. It's a complicated thing. And I'm dreading this all year. I'm thinking,
I'm
God,
dreading it, and that wasn't even happening to me.
Yeah. And then fortuitously, I go maybe like a month or 2 weeks or something ahead of time to meet my surgeon again and talk to her. And she says, I've been looking at your case and I've been reading a lot of research that's been coming out over the past 6 months. And I think we can do with you, rather than the full colectomy, we can do what's called an ileorectal anastomosis, which is to say that rather than doing multiple procedures and having the ostomy bag and all that, it would be a one-step procedure. And we're going to leave about the last foot of your colon because it's not diseased. And that was like the biggest godsend to me, thinking like, okay, I'm going to go from having 3 surgeries, having to recover over the course of a year. Who knows what this is going to do to me, to 1 surgery. Okay, that's a big weight off my shoulders. But then the plot thickens.
Oh no.
So I go in and I'm terrified about having the surgery or whatever. I go in and I have it done. Surgery goes off with no problems or anything. Like it goes well. I'm of course out of it. I'm terrible. I feel terrible. I'm got holes in me and everything.
Yeah.
And but then I developed like an abscess, which is not unusual. So I had to have like a surgical drain put in. I had that for weeks. I came home. I got really sick again. I had to go back. They had to put in 2 more surgical drains in my side. Ended up, I had to my gallbladder got really angry. So then I had to wait like 8 or 10 weeks or something with the surgical tube still in my side the whole time. And then have the gallbladder removed. So it's funny, like it's been just over a month since I had my last surgery, but like about 4 weeks ago, I still had a tube in my side.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Basically, the past 5 months of my life, I have been in some kind of medical suffering. It's been like the worst. Definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Most difficult, taxing thing. So that has been a real life-changing thing for me. But I'm happy to say that when they removed everything, no cancer anywhere. So I'm cancer-free, never had, that's great. And I have all but pretty much fully recovered now, which is wild. Like if you were to look at my anatomy, I'm jumped from like here all the way down. Like it's just like a straight shot, and it works.
Wow.
It's the human body's fascinating. But I say all that to say, like, I haven't made YouTube videos in quite a while. And that's why, basically, when they found out about that, they started suggesting all these procedures or whatever. I'd have to do this, try it. That didn't go. And I kind of, if you're like a creative type person, when you're under, I almost like duress, from all this other stuff going on, it's really hard to be creative or motivated to do anything like that. And it's not until like really just recently that I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get up and like do some stuff again. Yeah. And so when you said, you contacted me about doing the video, I thought, perfect. That's like that's a good way for me to like put my foot back in the water a little bit.
Ease back in, baby. Not a lot of people are going to watch this.
It's more like I knew that I wasn't going to have to do a ton of editing or something like that.
Yeah. You let me handle all that.
I'll let him do the editing.
Yeah, baby.
I'll just participate. But I'll pretty soon I'll have a video up on the channel, like going over all that. I'll have lots of pictures of me looking like a skeleton and all.
I might throw a couple up here in post of you. We're friends on IG as well, so I've seen some things. I will say I'm not I wasn't surprised because I already knew that you were going through this. So when I said, where have you been? Obviously I know where you've been, but,
Right.
but like, I am like, that stresses me out for a bro, you know, it's like, dang, dude, I don't
Yeah.
like hearing any of that, but I am really glad to hear that you're like 100%, dude. That's so crazy.
Yeah. Or at least upper 90s, you know,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
feeling good, you
yeah,
know?
it's wild. I have something like maybe 14 scars on my abdomen or something, and you know, I'm missing like multiple organs and all kinds of crazy things. But I mean, here I am, yet I persist. You
Yeah,
know,
man.
I'm out of the hospital, and now it is everyone's problem.
A
And
a dad's will to
so,
live, dude. You know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
got
exactly.
daughters. You got
I
you got
do, and I just found myself in this position where I don't know. I've never been in a place like that before, where you're so sick that you're in the hospital for weeks at a time. I never even had like any kind of surgery, and I mean, I made it to 35 years old or whatever, and that's never had that happen before. So to go from nothing to this major surgery with multiple things like that was like a real shock to me. But at the same time, I just found myself in this place of like, well, I mean, you just got to do it, because
yeah,
your options are do that or die, you know?
right,
So,
right,
like,
right.
so, and I was like, well, I guess we'll do this then. And I found that, you know, I have really like a greatly renewed appreciation for just the little things now. I mean, like, I can take out the trash, I can put it in the car and drive it to the dump. You know, I can like do the dishes without, you know, hunkering over because there's a tube in my side and all these things. And I mean, just these little things like that. I just did my first gig back last weekend, and that was the first one I'd done since like January 4th or something. And it was so nice to just go out and step on stage and like have the guitar and feel like a human being again, and not like a, you know, what's the word, invalid.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? So I mean, it's been great, and so I'm enjoying all that stuff. Being able to do this is a pleasure. So thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah,
Um, and yeah, I'm ready to be back at it. That's what I tell people. I'm ready to like get back in the saddle and start doing some stuff again. So we started with
nice.
the gigs and doing that with Josh. I'm gonna, you know, I got a new camera. We're gonna start working on YouTube again, and you know, I'm just looking forward to kind of putting that behind me and moving forward.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I mean, honestly, like, that's what this whole podcast, this whole Tone Deep thing is for me to humanize myself to the people that I watch or listen to, and then also for them to come on and be real people for others to watch. And I just find it makes YouTube feel less like a cold pit of despair. You know,
Yeah, I
it
think the
makes me
thing
feel
that
like I'm not in a basement by myself, basically.
Yeah, I think the thing that appeals to me, and I'm sure other people about YouTube, is that level of genuineness that can be present there. It isn't always, you know, you see guys who get into a point where their guitar YouTube channels are so huge that everything feels sponsored and made, and you know, that's fine. I'm not knocking it, but I really like seeing those guys that come up and I'm like, that's just a guy who enjoys talking about this. You know,
Yeah,
I love watching Tom Bukovac's channel
dude, me
because
too. Uncle
he
Larry
is
all the way.
yes, he is so stripped back, and I mean, it's like the most minimum level of turn a camera on, but it's just cool to see into his world and what he's doing. And he's such a fantastic musician.
I think the
And
amount of talent he has allows him to just record with his iPhone.
yeah,
Like, I
it's
couldn't
so
get away
worth
with
it.
that, you know?
Yeah, I love that about him. I've been enjoying lately John Cordy. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've watched him or not, British
Yep.
fella. Fantastic guitar player. I really like the way that he thinks about things and the way that his videos are really kind of, again, it's a strip back thing. He's like, I'm going to just sit here. Here's the camera. I'll talk to you about something. I'll cut in some clips, you know, but he's a
Right.
great player. And that's not the most important thing, but that's something I really appreciate is when a great musician just comes on and just talks to you, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to hear your thoughts and see the things that you're interested in. And that's going to inspire me to do something. And so I too, I look for those guys like that are really humble. You can just tell. Robert Baker is a great example too. I've always enjoyed his content and the way that he does stuff. And I just, you know, he seems like a really chill guy.
He just like, I thought that was really cool. You could run a live stream and you could put something in the chat and they'd talk back to you. And
Yeah.
you can really tell who somebody is that way. You did it a different way where you never really went live necessarily, but you've always just been such an open, I mean, case in point, the story you just told, but like you've always been such an open book that was like really easy to feel like I knew you, even though I know like we've never had a beer at a barbecue together, but like
Right.
it still felt like I was getting the real deal. And I just think that makes for the best YouTube channels. So
Yeah, I'd like to take some kind of credit for that. Like I do that on purpose or something, but I probably just overshare sometimes. I don't know. It's just who I am. You know,
Yeah.
I just kind of, I feel like I just want to tell people the truth, you know, and I try not to, like, when I'm making YouTube videos, I try not to do anything overly negative if I can help it. Every so often, something will really get in my, like, grind my gears. And like I made a video a while back about, because guitar ads were driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But in general, especially with gear and stuff, I try to, like, if it's something I don't like, I'm not gonna like make a video dogging it usually.
Yeah.
I would rather just not. But in general, yeah, I just want to tell you what I think or what I feel, and then talk to people about it. I enjoy talking to people in the comments, as long as everybody's polite. You know, there's always that one guy, but
There's always that one guy. Yeah, that's true.
I'm happy to you know, have discourse or argue or differing opinions or whatever. If we all just be polite about it, you know. But I had one guy years ago. He started making like a bunch of different YouTube accounts, but I could tell it was him because he had a really specific syntax. I was like, I know you use the same weird, I guess, insult in multiple different accounts. And I was like, man, that's really weird. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking like he probably made 20 or 25 different accounts just to leave me mean comments under videos. I thought, wow, that's so weird.
You could kind of relate to Tom Bukovac's little sparring partner there for a little while. That guy that was punching way above his weight class.
Tom Bukovac, of all people, my gosh, what, like, this dude?
How are you mad at that guy? Like, I don't know.
Of all the people you could pick a fight with, right? I mean, my gosh.
Yeah,
you know,
pick a fight with me. I know way less. Okay, you could win that fight any day, but
well, even if you do know more than somebody, I mean, like, what good does it do to, you know, punch down at somebody? Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you do? I always like that. I don't know if it's a quote or some saying I've heard a bunch of times. That, like, you know, you will never be criticized by people who are doing more than you. And
yeah, that's,
you know what I mean? I think that's the truth. I mean, I think you can, anytime people start coming after you, like, you know, they're not doing what you're doing. So just keep doing what you're doing. You know, and I'm sure when I was young, I felt that way too. I'm sure I was being a jerk to somebody, but I didn't have YouTube as an outlet to do it. So fortunately,
you had to do it face to face and deal with consequences.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's that too. People do lack the fear of being punched in the nose for being a butthead.
Yeah, we all learned the old-fashioned way, like what you can say and what you can't, and then everybody kind of threw that out the window when we all started YouTubing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot easier to be brave about stuff when you're behind a keyboard and
true,
you know. But honestly, for me, it's not even the threat of physical stuff. Like, you're just anonymous. You know, you used to, if you said something, people were like, that's a dick thing to say.
Yeah,
you know, but. Now you know, you can sort it. So I wish people wouldn't do that, but I understand. I was a young person once too, and
yeah.
But yeah, we're talking about Nick Perry.
Yeah,
I have been a fan of his for many years. When I was probably 14 years old, this is like probably 2004, I guess, something like that. Van Halen released like a best of both worlds big compilation thing. You know, it had some new songs on it, and this was Van Hagar. So Sammy,
did it have some of the old Van Halen, and then, or was it just Van Hagar?
Yeah, no, it was like a whole disc of Roth Van Halen and a whole disc of Hagar Van Halen, and then there was like maybe 3 new tracks with Hagar.
Nice.
And this was the first new Van Halen tracks in several years.
I think I remember that actually.
Yeah, it was like a double disc, and it had the stripes on it and everything. It was very cool. And Dad and I were really jazzed about it. And then they announced they were going to do a tour kind of like supporting this. And this is, 2004 or whatever. This is, by this point, we're thinking like Van Halen's done, right? Because
Yeah.
they just, they hadn't done anything since the blow up that happened with Roth at the VMAs or whenever that was in the late 90s. And so when we see they're going to come out and tour again and Hagar's with them, it's like, awesome. So we go and we see Van Halen in Greensboro, North Carolina in maybe like September or something. And Silvertide, Nick Perry's band, Nick Perry was probably like 16 or something. He was really young. He's not much older than I am. His band is opening for Van Halen. I'd never heard of them before. So like, I didn't know that we were going to go see Silvertide. I just knew we were going to go see Van Halen. And this is one of the first bigger concerts that I've ever been to, like in a big Coliseum or something. And so we go in there and the curtain drops and here comes this, what looks to me like a pretty small guy, because this giant Firebird.
Yeah.
And he is just like on fire the whole night. Like my eyes were glued to the stage watching Nick Perry and the rest of the band too. I mean, Walt was like an incredible singer. The whole band's great.
Yeah.
But watching Nick Perry thrash around with this Firebird and like a Flying V, and he's playing these cool, super cool classic rock kind of riffs through this big Marshall stacks, and I was like, that's it right there. That's what I want to do. That, I had just kind of started playing guitar a little bit. I loved music, but I just started playing guitar a little bit. But really, Nick Perry, I have to give credit to, is the one that I was like, I must play guitar. Like, Dad, I don't care what we do from now on. Like, I need you to give me a guitar.
Dude, that is so awesome. Like the thread, like just the fact that I'm able to thread you to Nick through this podcast makes me feel like I'm doing good work here.
Yeah.
Like,
and Nick is an interesting one because he has been involved in like a lot of really cool projects over the year, but I don't necessarily think he gets his due as how good a guitar player he is. And songwriter too. But yeah, I mean, like I followed him through Silvertide, and then he played with Shinedown for a while, and he played with Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and then he's got this like kind of sort of Underground Thieves or whatever thing that he's been doing, and I followed all of that for years. And every time he puts something out, I'm like, dude, this guy, why is he not plastered on the? Yeah, exactly, in a cassette form.
Oh, brother, I've got MP3s. I have this in 3 formats. So I have cassettes. So there's the double. If nobody's listening to this is Terra Firma, and it is the best album released in the last 4 years, man. And I love like Marcus King, and I love like that Matthew Scott. He does YouTube videos.
He's fantastic.
His album's so good. There's lots of really good rock and roll right now. I have a bunch of Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown. Why is their name? Oh, there it is. Larkin Poe. And like there's lots of good rock and roll. Terra Firma, it's easily this generation's The Wall, and nobody knows it. And it's just,
isn't that the craziest
thing? To me.
I know. Oh, he was in another thing I thought was cool too. Sinai, I think is what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just followed him for years, and I was just so interested in his particular style of guitar playing. I mean, because it really resonated with me as a guy who grew up listening to and learning. Like, I learned how to play guitar from like Leonard Skinner and Cream and ZZ Top and AC/DC, and that is how I learned how to play guitar. Whereas a lot of the other guys my age were like Nirvana or Alice in Chains or something, And so like I grew up like, as a guitar player, you got to be like a gunslinger is what my dad would call it.
Yeah.
And so I was concerned with playing, not just like playing riffs or whatever, but like I want to learn how to play lead guitar. And so to see Nick, who was at the time, like I said, not very much older than me, up on stage in front of Van Halen. And he just looks so cool with this like Firebirds like slung down at his knees. And I was like, man, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And just watching him over the years, it's been really motivating to me and inspiring to watch a guy like him who's so talented kind of work his way up this ladder. Mm-hmm. And he didn't just like blow up like some artists do. Nick has been like on a steady incline. And so when that Underground Thieves stuff came out and was so good, I was like, awesome. And I'm still over here like, why is this guy not on the front of Guitar Player magazine? Or like, why is he not selling out Coliseums? It's incredible.
I mean,
So
one could say the same for InterTwyneD, which kind of brings me to my last question.
Inside that farmhouse, my old glove and bat. I'm wearing this soul coat and my favorite baseball cap. And when the sun hits the house just right and the wind rustles the leaves, I can see you standing there.
I know you obviously you guys haven't been doing much because lead singer's out with tubes in his ribs.
Sure.
But like, what's coming up for you guys? You got more music to record? You tour or anything?
Definitely. So the thing with InterTwyneD, that really starts with me and the drummer Chris. He's my cousin, and Chris and I have been like tight since we were, kids, like,
that's awesome.
5-6 years old. And as we were getting older, we both started playing instruments. We were like doing other things. And then one day we're like, why aren't we in a band together? Like, I can clearly remember that moment of like being at like a family Christmas or something. And I was like, hey, we should do something. And Chris was like, I thought you'd never ask me.
Yeah.
So, it kind of starts and ends with us. And Chris and I both have multiple children. He's got 3, I have 2. And as being a dad kind of eats up a lot of your time and all that stuff. But we have slowly but surely been writing material over the past 4 or 5 years or something. And I would say we have another probably, 8 or 10 tunes that are pretty well ready to be recorded. We had put out some singles earlier, just kind of as a like when we could get everybody together and do it. But I hope that this year we're going to get together and kind of record either what I would call like a lengthy EP or a short album worth of tunes, and put that stuff out on Spotify and everything. And we'll probably shoot some videos for fun. I don't know what the likeliness of ITD doing any like touring stuff is anymore. Yeah. It would have to be one of those things where it came up that somebody wanted to bring us on a tour with them, which would be awesome. But that's kind of like a passion project for us. We do that. We make that stuff because we love it and we want to put it out, and it's like part of us. But we're kind of at the point now where monetarily speaking, it doesn't make sense to pursue that really hard.
You would have to make like an annual salary level of money off of it.
Yeah, or there would have to be something really that, if like Wolfgang Van Halen called us and said, hey, come open on my tour or whatever, then like, yeah, we would
let's go, bro.
I would say, I always say that like if Eddie was the king of electric guitar, then Wolf is the prince that was promised to us.
Yes.
Because like,
dude, he's
like,
so
he is
good.
so good. Such a great singer and songwriter and guitar player, and also drummer. And
InterTwyne's like the perfect opening act for
well, Wolf, if you're listening, we would love to come open for your Eastern Coast tour. So
I'm tagging Mammoth in the description.
Holler at your boy, Wolf.
Holler at your boy.
But yeah, it would have to be something like that where it came up where we could do a run of shows with someone. It's not something where like we're all too old to want to just get in a van and do the little venues anymore.
Yeah,
we just
especially
with now like Brian and Ken and they have their own kind of like heavier projects that they do. They got one that they're in right now. I think it's called a Reverie, where it's really pretty gnarly metal type stuff. And then I find myself pretty busy with the Josh Sanders thing, which is pretty cool. But that's a very different outlet for me. So it's interesting. We've been able to, as individual musicians, kind of go and explore different sides of ourselves. So I'm doing a lot of time doing this Southern rock country sort of thing, which I also really enjoy. But I do feel, sometimes like I'm missing that nasty, chunky metal thing.
Yeah, really.
And then I also
PRSs to work.
Yeah, and then I also one of my things that I want to tackle this year is I have a bunch of music that I wrote for myself, kind of, that's not an either really thing, because I have some stuff that's kind of more, I describe it as somewhere between like Journey and Bryan Adams and Eddie Money and that kind of, it's a sort of it's rock, but there's a little bit more of an 80s tinge to it, and it's a little more melodic. It's not as heavy as InterTwyne, but it's not as twangy as something I would give to Josh. So I kind of am hoping that I could sort of maybe do like a solo project album over the next year or so.
Well, you have that studio you did in your shop, right? So
this is where I'm sitting right now.
Nice.
Yeah, we recorded all of Josh's EP in this studio here, and I felt great about it. We're going to release that stuff pretty soon, and so I'm looking forward to tracking my kind of also InterTwyne stuff, which we did the last InterTwyne tracks. We did those here as well, but I'm looking forward to being able to record some stuff just specifically as a challenge to myself with like no exterior input. Like I'm going to do it completely myself. I mean, I'm going to have a drummer come play drums. I'm not a drummer, but I'm going to write and arrange everything myself and just kind of push myself to do that rather than do it in a band format, which is how I've done it for 20 some years or something. So all of those are things that are coming, there's some really rockin' InterTwyne stuff that I'm excited to do, some really like chunky, gnarly things that I'm really into. And we're going to have one of our friends that always comes and does a track on each release with us, Brandon. I'm going to have him do something with me. And then Josh's EP is going to drop. I think we're going to drop it on July the 4th, actually.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So that'll be cool. That is really a lot of fun. It's got kind of a Skinnerd thing to it, which I really enjoy. Yeah. And then the solo thing later, hopefully this year, kind of a different aspect for me. I'm going to play some more guitar on that. With InterTwyne, I do a lot of rhythm, chunky guitar, and then I'll play like a short solo somewhere. Yeah. With that, I'm going to do some more extended, like melodic lines and stuff. I'm going to kind of tickle my Eric Johnson fancy a little bit.
Stretch out a little bit.
Yeah, stretch out some bigger sounds. And, the guys that inspire me to play are guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Johnson and these guys that are great singers and songwriters, but they're also just fantastic musicians. And like, I could just sit and listen to them play. Yeah. And I think it'd be cool for me to get to flex that muscle.
Yeah, man. Get her out on the straightaway and open it up a little bit,
Yeah, I so rarely get the opportunity to do that, and which is fine. I enjoy being in the pocket.
I would say that speaks to your musicianship. I mean, the fact that you have the wherewithal to sort of restrain yourself, because I'm sure as a guitar player, I know like any chance I get to like open her up, I want to. I'm not as good as you are. I practice as much as I can, but I think that's a different muscle that you're flexing against the other muscle, which is like fast twitch and wanting to go,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to gently correct you here. Yeah. I would never say I'm not as good as you or you're not as good as me. We are in different places.
True.
And you can be just as good as you want to be. It's about how much time and attention you sink into whatever one thing. So I always like to say, because people say that to me sometimes, I'm not as good as you, or I won't be as good as you, or whatever. Like, no. We're just in different places right now. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's because of where you started or how much time you put into it or what you're interested in or whatever, we just don't do the same thing. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me, whatever. So like, I always think that's like keep that for yourself. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. I am in a really, I just finished that Robert Baker course, the 80s licks course, and I got a lot out of it, and I know I got better. Like, and every time I take and I put the effort in. And so to sort of just echo your message there, I'm 40 and I can still get better at guitar. So
Absolutely.
To me, and actually just to maybe kind of put a bow on all of this, those channels I mentioned, yours included, in 2020 that I discovered, really sent me down a path of getting better. So I posted my very first ever Instagram guitar video where I could barely play no quarter, but watching your channel, seeing your talent, you sharing that with all of us, and Robert being such an encouraging person. So just finding like genuine creators on YouTube really helped shape like the type of guitar player I am now. And I'm really actually super happy with it and just starting to like come into my own confidence about playing guitar. So I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I mean, that makes me feel good to know that I enjoy just communicating with people and doing other stuff, but it's really nice to hear that I've had some level of impact. That's great. I mean, and in a positive way. I mean, that's awesome to hear. And I'll tell you my secret to improvement. And people think I'm making this up, but this is the truth. When I am struggling to get a technique or something that I want to improve or whatever, I will force myself to write a solo on a track that I'm recording that requires that technique. And then it forces me to be diligent and get good at it because I'm going to have to go do it live.
Dude, that's really interesting. And what you're describing right there is like, what if I were a better guitar player and I wrote a solo for this song? What technique would I want to use? And that's a really fun. I love playing like little brain games with yourself.
Yeah, it's been helpful for me over the years, and it's a lot of fun. Nobody else would know this because I'm not like it's specific to me. But like when I go back and listen to old InterTwyneD stuff, like our first record or whatever, I can hear parts where I'm like, I know that I was not good at this then. I can do it great now, but I know that when I did this, here's a good example. When I did the first couple of tracks with InterTwyneD, like our first record, we did it in patches of like 2 or 3 songs is what we could afford. And one of the very first songs we did had like a little gallop part in the very end of the song. I go, I could not do that to save my life. It took me because I was like a classic rock guitar player and Kenan was the metal guy. But I was like, no, Kenan Pearson, I am going to play this one riff for this 3 seconds in this song. And I bet I did like 15 takes to get this one stupid gallop thing. And now I can do that without thinking about it. But it's just cool for me personally, like in a selfish way, to be able to look and see when I listen to that stuff over the years that like, oh, I can hear myself learning and changing and doing these things. And it's really cool. It's like like when you are a kid and you mark yourself on the inside of the door to see how tall you've gotten. It's like that, but with your guitar playing.
Dude,
and so
recording
I always encourage people
over time is the
record
best.
yourself. That's such a great idea because it's like if you're trying to lose weight or build muscle or anything like seeing yourself over time is the way that you track that progress. And so being able to see that like, wow, look what I did when I was 14 and look what I did when I was 34. Look how much difference there is. That is something like to be grateful for. And so I highly encourage, even if it's like with your phone or something, like play a little bit every so often and record yourself and then go back and look at that later. And you'll be like, wow, look at what I've done.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's great advice for anybody out there. Great advice for me. Yeah, man, dude, I want to thank you very much for agreeing to come on. I'm very excited to like get to meet you. You know, if I ever one day see you at a NAMM or something like that, that'll be so awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna try. I've not been to one yet. I've been invited a few times, and like just for one reason or another, like child was being born, or I was in the hospital, or you know, something. I'm gonna get to one before too long, because I definitely like Thomas. I'd really like to go hang out with him in person. I've not gotten to meet him in person, and lots of other people. So definitely, I'm headed to one before too long. I don't want to say which one just yet because I'm not sure, but I will be there before too long.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm just really grateful that you're feeling better and that we're going to be seeing some more fine tuning episodes coming up soon, and
yeah,
you know, getting more intertwined music and hearing what you've done with Josh. It's all really exciting, and I'm just super happy for you that you're feeling better, man.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me on and letting me geek out about, you know, guitar stuff. There are so few people, you know, in your regular day-to-day life that like get on the nerd level with you.
Yeah.
And so it's always a pleasure to get to talk to someone who's equally enthusiastic about your really specific niche interests.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely, dude. I will definitely be like hitting you up. Maybe we'll do a part 2 sometime after you release some music or whatever, and have a party about that. I'd love to have you back on.
Sounds like a good time.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.